Inhambane is quite a sleepy, quiet provincial town in Mozambique, about 300 miles north of Maputo, and we stopped there on the road trip to Gorongosa. And there's a building there that I wanted to photograph again, which is the Hoffman House, which looks like it's come straight from the French Quarter in New Orleans. It's a beautiful house. I think it's only partially occupied now. It was built by a businessman called Hoffman, probably around the turn of the last century. The problem using these big cameras is, these old cameras, is everything's knackered, so the threads are all stripped on the bottom. The house is a morning shot, so we passed by as we left town. It was Sunday morning, so there were all these people going to church who either totally ignored us or were curious and hung around and were entertained. This camera is a Watson & Son 12 by 15 inch and probably built around about the same time the house was. The other problem with this camera, which I only discovered when I set it up to make the shot of this house, was that I'd forgotten to bring a lens board for the wide angle lens that I wanted to use, so I ended up having to use duct tape to tape the lens onto the camera. Inhambane today is quite quiet, but it's had a fairly checkered history. It was the site of the first Jesuit mission to East Africa in 1560, which apparently didn't last too long. I think they all died of malaria, but the Portuguese came in around about that time, set up a trading settlement with a fort, and they traded ivory here and slaves for about 200 years. Before the Portuguese came, there were Muslim traders who came dhows, and that continued along this coast, trading with the Portuguese. And it was an important trading centre for slaves and ivory, which rivaled Ilha de Mozambique further north, but it was eventually eclipsed by the trade that went on there. I think Inhambane is definitely worth a visit if you're ever in Mozambique. There aren't that many tourists here at the moment because the civil war is still going on, but those tourists who do come, they're typically South Africans who head out for the surf 20 miles or so to the east. So the town itself remains quite quiet and free of tourists.